Shaye Elliott from the Elliott Homestead here, and I'm going to invite you to step into a very messy space with me. I'm kind of ashamed to show you what I have going on here, but I thought we could get better together because it's winter time, and this is the time when every gardener thinks about what will be planted this coming spring. In fact, we start a lot of our seeds here in February, and so it's really time for me to get on the ball. We are in zone 7B here where I live in the Pacific Northwest, and that means our last frost date is typically around the first week of May. So it always comes faster than you think it's going to, which is why I've already ordered my vegetable seeds for the year. In fact, we're gonna do something completely new this year because last year I got so incredibly bogged down with the amount of weeds we had on our farm. I just could not keep up. And we were growing a lot of vegetables in our market-style vegetable rows. And while I love this method of gardening and I love having the big crops of all those staple foods that we eat throughout the summer and winter, I was just completely losing heart that it was ever going to be better, that I was ever going to get on top of it or be organized. And sometimes it's the really small things that actually encourage you to keep going in gardening. So that's why I want to focus this energy on organizing my seeds like an adult. In fact, I just put on a coat the other day and I found a packet of seeds completely wasted that I had shoved into a garden coat pocket, never taken out. Of course, it got wet with the winter rain, and here we are, wasted seeds, which is not where I want to be. Before we dive in, I want you to make sure that you're subscribed to the channel below. And if you'd like more garden talk about all the flowers we grow or how we grow things here on the farm, make sure you check out my podcast, Homemaker Chic Podcast. Now let's dive in. This is going to be a little bit of a different type of video today because I wanted to sit with you just like you were across my kitchen table and have a conversation with you about what we're growing and why we're growing it, and we'll organize as we go along. So the first thing that you should know is that this year we're starting completely over with our vegetable gardening. We're moving it to a new part of the property, which is behind our barn. This is a new 5,000 square feet piece of land that we have that sits behind our barn. There is no flat land on my property whatsoever, but this is as flat as it gets. And so we're going to still maintain our market style rows so that we can grow big crops really easily and access them from pathways on both sides. You can see in the drawing here that we're really trying to utilize the space as best as we can, but not only for vegetable production, but also so that it's easy to maintain. One of the big problems that we had with our old market garden is that we couldn't get our Easy-Go down there. We couldn't get our tractor down there. It was really hard to get wheelbarrows down there because it sat down in a gully. And so everything had to be brought in and out with my big strong arms, which actually aren't that strong. I got super tired. And so this area of the property will be able to access with equipment, which should make it a lot nicer and ultimately a lot easier to keep clean. We are going to reinstate a completely new method in this area called no-dig, which means that we won't be tilling the ground at all. Instead, we'll be laying down thick layers of cardboard, covering that cardboard with wood chips or gravel for the pathways, and then covering it with about 6 inches of compost to plant directly in for the vegetable beds. So that's what we're going to plant, and this is what we're going to plant it with. Now, here is my new seeds for the season. And we actually had a lot left over from last year, which is great. And they've been sitting in my refrigerator, horribly organized, dirty, some of them moldy. I'm quite ashamed about this because this is a lot of money and it's a lot of vegetables, a lot of future vegetables. And the fact that I've been keeping them this way for basically the whole time I've been a gardener probably doesn't speak very highly of my organizational skills. But I'm gonna try to get better, and let me show you this cool piece of equipment I got to do that. Okay, by equipment, I really just mean plastic storage tub, but this one's really cool. I got this on Amazon, and I'll link to it below if you'd like to grab one. But it's a big plastic carrying case with a handle so that it can be easily taken out to the garden. And then inside, this is actually made for photos, but are these perfect little plastic containers. So what I'm gonna do is put my seed packets inside like so. That way I can combine some fresh ones from this year's seeds with what I have left over from last year's seeds. You know, some of them I'll have to put into Ziplocs because I've got, some saved from vegetables in little containers like this. And then we're going to label them and we're going to alphabetically organize them so that when I need a seed, I don't have to flick through all of these like I've done 1,000 times. So let's start by organizing all them, and then we'll talk about what we're growing and why we chose these varieties. Okay, we have our garden tentatively planned out, and now our seed situation is much, much better. I know it's one of those silly things and it probably won't last the whole season, but just for now, I feel so much better about going about my seed starting and planning out my gardens, knowing that things are accounted for. And this way, it's also really easy to see if something is empty and I need to reorder something. So this is all situated, but let's talk about what we're actually growing. So we eat all the vegetables that come out of our garden. We don't sell any at the market. So this is all for our family, but we've fine-tuned a lot that we grow because we know what we like to eat. We know the varieties that we like. And then we also know which varieties help us in achieving our goal of having food through all of the year that's grown from our gardens. So a lot of these varieties that we grow are very particular to long-term storage, which makes a big difference in how long your produce will actually last in your root cellar or cold garage or cold storage. I'm going to post a link to the blog post down below the video that will detail every single thing that we're growing and the exact variety. But let me just give you a quick run through so that it can answer some of your questions about what we'll be growing in this year's garden. Now, I order all of my seeds from Johnny's Seeds, and I've been doing this for quite a few years now, and I've just been so happy with the quality that I haven't really had a reason to go explore elsewhere. I'm super happy with the quality, the germination rates, the service, all of it. So that's what I'll be growing from. So if you want to check out any of these varieties, you can do that from Johnny's if you like. So beets are a big storage crop for us, and we grow a hybrid beet. We grow a few different varieties. This year we'll be growing a Cylindra, we'll be growing an Avalanche, and then we will be growing a Touchstone Gold for fresh eating. So typically golden beets don't store as long as your red beet varieties, but these are all really great fresh eating, and then the red ones we can store through the winter. Another big storage crop for us, of course, is cabbage. This is what not only we use for our sauerkraut, but also we will just store whole heads of cabbage in our cold room. So these are the two varieties that I have been growing for quite a few years, and I'm always so happy with them. So there is a fresh market red cabbage. There is a hybrid storage red cabbage called Ruby Perfection. And then there's another fresh market green cabbage. Here's another one of the Ruby Perfection. And then this is another storage cabbage called Storage Number 1 F1. No, I'm sorry, Storage Number 4 F1. And so you'll notice that there are fresh eating varieties. Those are for my sauerkraut. And then there's storage varieties, and those are for my cold room. None of the rest in here are storage varieties, but we'll be growing broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, cucumbers, artichoke, arugula, kale, herbs, fennel, eggplant, collards, chard, and cutting celery. All right, on to the next. Of course, radishes, storage pumpkins and squash. The two storage pumpkins that I grow the most are actually butternut, which is a squash, and then a delicata squash. So this is a squash that's really small, which is great because you can just, use one for a meal and you don't have cut open squash lingering about going rotten in your refrigerator. You can also eat the skin. So it's really easy to eat and it's sweet. It's one of our family's favorites. So butternut and delicata are sort of the baseline of our squashes. We should talk about peppers. Even though this isn't a storage crop for us, we do roast them and can them in olive oil. So this year we will be growing Round of Hungary, Bequinho yellow, sorry about that pronunciation, Escamillo, which is a hybrid sweet pepper, Carmen, which is another hybrid sweet pepper, Mad Hatter, Red Flame, and that's all. So we grow a big pepper garden because we use it in a lot of our salsas. And then we also will roast them and oil pack them and keep them in the fridge for the winter. Parsnips are another big storage crop for us. This one is called Albion. I've grown it for many years, always had really good harvests with it. If you've never had a parsnip before, it's like a sweet potato and a carrot had a baby, and they're delicious. Onions are a major storage crop for us, so much so that I have to go to the big old kit over here. So I grow two types of onions. I have fresh and a storage. Now the fresh onions, I always will grow green onions and Walla Walla sweets. Walla Walla is just a couple hours away from us. These are world famous fresh eating sweet onions. But for my storage onions, I will grow a Patterson, which is a yellow storage onion. And then I also grow a purple onion, which is called Red Carpet. So again, these are both pelleted onion seeds. And what that means, well, let me show you. You can see these carrots are pelleted. So they're wrapped in this little coating, which makes them easier to see because both onion and carrot seeds are super small. So I grow from a pelleted seed so I can plant them a little bit more evenly. And that way I waste less seeds by overseeding and then having to thin. So it saves me a lot of work by just being able to grab the one seed and poke it in that way. While we're here, we'll talk about carrots. I grow a Bolero storage carrot because carrots are a huge crop that we store every year. If you plan your plantings right, at least here in 7B where we are, you can actually get 2 rounds of carrots a year. So the first ones will go in the early spring, basically as soon as the soil is workable, and you can harvest those in mid-June, plant it again just a couple weeks later, and you can have a super late fall crop as well. After onions, we have okra, lettuce, leeks, turnips, tomatoes, sprouts, and spinach. So let's talk about tomatoes because obviously that's the most exciting. One thing I learned about myself last year is that I actually really like tomatillo salsa a lot better than a red tomato salsa. So I'm going to grow so many tomatillos this year. So of course we've got a super verde tomatillo, which I know shouldn't be in the tomato category, but that's how it is in my mind. So here it is. Cherry Bomb and Sun Gold. If you haven't grown Sun Gold tomatoes before, this is the one tomato that I would not be without. And then we'll be growing a few other heirloom varieties, such as Brandywine, Striped German, Cherokee Purple, and Amish Paste. So we've got quite a few in here to choose from. Make sure you check out that blog post that I linked below the video if you want to check out the exact varieties of every single vegetable I grow. But now that our seeds are organized, we have to turn our attention to something else. I promised myself I would not be a procrastinator this year, which I'm very, very good at. So I went ahead and ordered my trees that I needed in January. This is very early for me, but last year and the year before when I went to go order, they were sold out of a lot of the varieties that I wanted to get. So I ordered them thinking, oh, they'll ship in the early spring when, maybe the frost won't be as bad. No. They arrived yesterday. They're all here behind me in their pots. So we're going to pot them up together and get our hands a little dirty. So these are my trees, and aren't they lovely? They are going to have to live inside for the winter here because none of them are hardy to our zone. So it'll be a jungle. We don't really have room for 8 trees inside, but we're going to have to make room because these are just too special to not have. These have been the trees that have been out for the last couple of years that I've been trying to get my hands on. And these are a hardy olive tree that is hardy to about 15, 20 degrees. So we get much lower than that, but on occasion. And so my hope is that if I protect these just a wee bit, they'll be fine here. But we're going to keep them in pots, and we're going to keep them in the courtyard, which is a really hot area, gets tons of sunshine. And then even when it's cold, it's protected from the wind, and it's kind of just a little tucked in area of our property. And so most of these trees will actually live in the courtyard. To go with our 2 olive trees, we have 2 ruby red grapefruit trees. We have a couple of avocados that will need to cross-pollinate, so both of them have to live in order for us to get any fruit from those. And then we have another Meyer lemon tree to be friends with our lemon tree that's currently living in our living room. And is that it? I think that's it. So I'm going to be potting these in these really nice, lightweight resin pots that you can get at just Lowe's or Home Depot. You guys know I love terracotta. I love it so much, but I have such a hard time moving it by myself. And so these pots just make a lot more sense because they're really, really lightweight. So that's it. We're just going to put these in their pots and get them watered and get them settled in the house. And then they will go outside later on this spring.